Hello, hello, hello. I am Gepwin, and this is Mac Game Review, where I tell you what's worth getting for your Mac, iMac, or other Apple machines. Today I'm going to be looking at a game called Corp. This is a game by Vanguard Games, who, as far as I can tell, have made one other game as of this recording called Gatling Gears, which is a twin-stick shooter. Corp is a strategy turn-based tile game with some kind of interesting concepts. So let's jump into the campaign here and take a look. I'm going to start with the freemen just to show you the different classes that you can get represent different difficulty levels, which is denoted by how long it gives you to take your turn. So you start with unlimited, and then it goes up to 90, then 75, and then maxes out at 60 seconds per turn. So far in my playing, I have not noticed taking your turn taking that long. I think even 60 seconds is a bit of a long time. But I'm going to play as the freeman for this to just give you time to look and give me time to talk about the game without having to stress out about turn length. So the little worker dudes in your main unit, it has this kind of I want to say kind of a quasi steampunk on some. It seems to have different factions have different aesthetics. There's sort of a steampunky one, these are the kind of nature steampunks, and then there's sort of these more industrial looking guys. So each faction does have its own look and feel. Now, it took me a while to figure out how to move around. You have to click and drag your mouse. Moving to the edges of the screen does nothing, and using your arrow keys does nothing. And it took me a little to figure out why it was so limited until I realized that this is actually a game for the iPad that has been ported over to the computer, which was my first sign that something might be a little wrong. So moving your troops is a little awkward. You click on the square you want them to go, and then you either double click or you hit this little check mark. And then moving your troops around is the main thing that you do for the first part of the game. You can move as far as you want over your captured areas, like these. And then once you are next to an uncaptured area or an enemy area, you can move one of your troops to that square or a hex or little octagon, whatever this thing is. I'm not going to count sides right now. To capture it. And you can only build your buildings on captured areas. So you have your buildings. This is a little troop creating building, and this is a power creating building, which they covered a little in the tutorial, but other than that, there's nothing to denote what these really do. I mean, you kind of can, because turret makes guns, which lets you shoot, but other than that, there's not a huge amount that lets you know what any of this stuff does. This is probably my biggest problem with this game, is just the interface gives you so little information. Like, this is grayed out. That's fine, but I can't build that. But why is it grayed out? It won't tell me. I have no information. I have no way of knowing why I can't build that or what I need to do to build it. Now, end the turn. It's a turn-based game. And thankfully the other factions take their turn very quickly, so you don't really have to wait. Now what you're seeing here is actually an incredibly interesting concept, and I think the strongest thing about this game. You see these windmills or other buildings, windmills, these guys have factories, I don't know what that is supposed to be. But these are your resource buildings. So you build these windmills and they create gold. They're basically little mining stations. And every turn they generate gold based on how many hexes they can mine from. The very, very interesting thing that I find is that every time you mine one of these hexes, it drops down a stage. So you see here how these ones are cracked and have dropped down. The next turn, these are going to be destroyed and actually destroy your play area. So it becomes this balance of destroy the amount of land you have to gain resources, or have fewer resources and more room to play. Which I find to be a fairly interesting concept. Now the objective, of course, is to take out your opponents. And you can do that by destroying the land they're on, or destroying them, and capturing their land. Now to do that, I don't have enough to do it right now, but to do that you move your troops at each other, and it's a 1-to-1 loss rate, so it's fairly simple. So if he has one troop here, I would move one troop to this square, hex, square, I'm going to keep calling them squares. I move one troop to this square, and then that troop disappears. Both of them disappear. It's 1-to-1 loss rate, and then I move a second one to that square, and I would capture it. Now you see here, I just got a lot of resources for this, but I've pretty much destroyed this entire area. The interesting thing is they do seem to double up, so if you put them... If I put more windmills here, they will destroy themselves next turn, but I'll get a lot more resources from that. Now this little building here lets you build troops, which is another little awkward thing. You have to click on the I want to build troops button over here. Then you have to select what factory you want to build your troops from. Since I only have one, I click this. And then you select how many you want to build, up to a maximum of 8. Which is, I think, all I could afford. I believe you can have 14 units on a square at once. I will have to look that up for you. Now here I've just captured this square here with my guy. And I'm going to build a windmill over here that's going to then take out some of their hexes, or squares, or whatever I'm calling them right now. So now I'm in a pretty good position. I've got the high ground, I've got my little base, everything's going well. So this is a fairly nice concept for a game, and it works pretty well. It's very quick little levels, as you'd expect from an iPad game. My only problem is they did not port it very well. It runs fine, but that's because the graphics look like crap, honestly. I think I got a huge amount of gold and destroyed half of the map, which I find a very interesting concept that I just don't think is explored very well. Now see, this little plane thing opened up, and I have no idea what happens if I click it. I know that I get the little plane unit, which, by the way, lets you move your troops from one hex to another by flying, which is very nice. You can get across gaps. It's the only way to get across gaps. But other than that, I don't know what that does. I don't know what it'll cost me. I click it, and it will just buy me the plane without any more information than that, which I do find rather annoying. Now let's just move some guys over here, make sure that I'm fortified on this side, and build a windmill to start threatening. Then I'm going to build a couple more troops. See, it's just all these little things. Overall, the concept is strong, and just all these little things keep adding up to being not as good as it could have been, which is something that I really hate saying about games. Games need to be as good as they can, and if you're gonna port over a game like this to the computer, use the resources that you get. It's very simple so that it can run on iPad, but do something else with it so that it runs on the computer. Do give us more information in the user interface. Let me know what things cost, let me know what things do. I mean, I know there's manuals and you could look up instructions and things, but let's be honest, the days of looking up instructions for games have been well and truly behind us for a long time. Now that was a fairly interesting little thing. You have the cannons, like this thing that I'm going to capture. Also, if you capture, you get eliminated. Yeah. I got a bonus gold. When you capture any buildings that are also on the square, so you have to be careful where you build. There's a nice little tactical element. And I just captured their turret, Now the turrets let you fire at other squares, which damages them and damages any troops that are on them. But really just my main problem is the limited amount of information it gives you. That's the main problem that I have with this game. The other problem that I have with this game is that it's repetitive. You just keep doing this, and this is interesting, but most of the maps are very similar. It boils down to a pretty basic strategy of take the high ground and build windmills everywhere. You can mess around with shooting things with turrets, but that takes so much longer than just building windmills and letting them destroy the enemy for you. Really, it's just very simple, very repetitive, and the concept is just not utilized to its fullest potential. I'm not a game designer, really. I'm not a very good one. At any rate, I don't have much practice, so I'm not going to tell you exactly what they could have done to fix it, but I know that it's hugely lacking, which just kind of bothers me. And maybe I just shouldn't ask for too much. I don't know if it's okay to ask more from these mobile games that have been ported over, but to be honest, they're trying to charge $10 for this on Steam. And I don't think it's worth $10. I really don't. It could be a fun game for the iPad if you like this kind of thing, but for the computer, I think it's just lacking way too much. Let's finish up this level here. Almost got these guys done. So, really, I think it's not bad. If this looks really fun to you, you could give it a try. The problem is, if this looks really fun to you, for a little while, it does not really progress. So I'll jump into a later level in a minute here and show you. The difficulty does jump up a little bit. I think they just make the AI a little bit better. Now here I can shoot this and destroy the... I can try to shoot this. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's so difficult to actually choose what you want to do. There we go. And in the turn, that'll drop this down, then I can shoot it, and that'll be the end. There we go. See, it's just such an awkward interface. I have to hit the I want to shoot button, which requires me to have ammo. Then I have to choose the device that I want to shoot with, and then I have to choose where I want to shoot, and it seems to have messed up again. See? Fire with this cannon at this square. Go. It's a very awkward interface, and it just interrupts your flow. I could see the time turns becoming a problem just because your flow is so bad. Now, I'm going to jump into a later level. You have to unlock things in the campaign by just winning CP. I don't know what that means. But you win your victory points, basically, and then that unlocks bits of the campaign. Now, I'm going to go with these pirates just to show you the one other thing that I have a slight problem with this game, which is every faction is exactly the same. See, this is a different faction. Now I've got the little countdown bar because it's supposed to be harder. But every faction is identical. Just completely identical. I can't build a windmill here or I'll lose all this. But you see here, it's exactly the same troops, exactly the same things. There's no increase of strategy. Their strategy is exactly the same no matter what. And it's just such a shame. There could be such an interesting concept with this. Make one faction destroy less. Make one faction that you can gather fewer resources but doesn't destroy the map. I mean, you gain the advantage of not destroying things, but you lose the advantage of being able to use your resource gathering as a weapon. There's just so many interesting things that you could do with this concept, and so few of them are done. I think that's my main problem, and also the difficulty does not really progress. There's been very little difficulty progression. after, aside from giving you limits on your turns. That's pretty much it. I think really that's all there is to say. It's just, it's not worth the $10. I'd say avoid it on the computer. If this looks very interesting to you, maybe pick it up on the iPad. But it's just not a good Mac game. The Mac is capable of so much more than this. I know we get a lot of guff as a gaming platform, but we deserve better than this. We really do. Just stop porting your iOS games to Mac and just calling it good. I mean, I'm a little bit sick of it, honestly. I see so many things that are just ports of games. Let's quit over. See, you get the tutorial on the how to play, which can help. Let's take a quick look at the settings and see what you get. I get some, you can turn on effects and shadows. There's no way that your system isn't going to run this. Really. It's a very simple game. It's just, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, interesting kind of game, but really it's just not worth the $10 in my opinion. If this looked fun to you and you think that you can do it endlessly, then give it a go. I mean, it's not horrible, but it really needs some improvement. It's such an interesting concept, and it's really a shame that we didn't get more from it. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more Mac game content. I put things up as often as I can, trying for a new review every week, at least. I have been Gepwin. I really hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.